want to thank for being host at the classical school here by the chairman of the Jacksonville Classical Academy, Ambassador John Rood, head of school, Dr. David Whiffen, and then Jennifer Mills, one of the teachers, is here. Will also provide some insight. And then we got Representatives Byrd, Duggan, and Yarborough. So I want to thank them for being here. Thanks for their support, and look forward to them having a productive special session next week. We are going through to prepare the governor's budget recommendations for the next fiscal year. And fortunately, in the state of Florida, we're in a very strong budget position. Our reserves are incredibly healthy, particularly given what people were projecting when COVID first hit. Every month, we tend to bring in significantly more revenue over the revenue estimates, and that's a function and really a reflection of the strength of Florida's economy, and we're proud of what we've been able to do. We are concerned about the news that we see with inflation, with how much it's gone up year over year. We were told 6 months ago that no serious person said we were going to have inflation, and actually we know this inflation's real. I've been saying it for many months, and it does represent a threat to having a vibrant economy. It absolutely impacts every family's budget. And then you see things, staples, groceries, gas prices, all those things are really, really significant. Florida has stepped up. We've said we want to bring ships here, we want to do whatever we can to help with the supply chain, and we'll continue to do that. So our situation is good. We have a lot of strong fundamentals. You know, some of these national headwinds, I hope that they'll take this inflation seriously, do some stuff for relief on gas prices, because it's really, really important to a lot of folks. Nevertheless, here we are with looking at what we're going to do for the upcoming fiscal year and when we submit our budget. And we're still working on different parts of the budget, but I'm happy to be able to come here today and provide an overview of what our education budget is going to look like in the governor's budget recommendations. And excuse me, as many of you know, we've done an awful lot since I became governor. We've invested in increasing teacher pay. We've invested in early learning. We've expanded school choice. We've invested in vocational and technical education, and we really want to be able to keep that momentum going. And fortunately, we're in a situation where we can keep that momentum going. And so our education budget this year is going to have a lot of wins for families, for students, and for teachers. I'm proud to say that we will be including $600 million to continue to boost teacher pay. We've been doing that the last 2 years. We're going to be able to do it even more, and this is the highest level we will have done over the last 3 years. Our goal is to increase particularly the average minimum salary in the state of Florida so we can continue to attract great people into the teaching profession. When I became governor, the average minimum salary was around $40,000. Now it's close to $47,000. And with our proposal, we're going to be in a really, really good spot. Certainly one of the top 10 in the country, and we may even be in the top 5 in the country. We also had great success this past year with doing bonuses for our principals and for our public school teachers. The school year 2021 was unique because it was COVID, and we were the only large state to have schools open in person for the entire school year. And I think we had a lot of principals, a lot of teachers that worked very hard and did well. So we were able to do $1,000 bonuses for 177,000 total principals and teachers across the state of Florida. And I'm happy to say that we are going to be including those bonus payments in this budget for next year, because we're still having to work very hard. I'm glad that we're in a much better spot on a lot of the stuff. Of course, here at Jacksonville Classic, they've been in-person normal school from the beginning, but we've now gotten pretty much the whole state in a really good spot, and we want to continue to do that. So those $1,000 bonuses, I think, are very meaningful, and I think it's something that we want to continue to do. Our budget will have a record of per pupil funding. We will have $8,000 in per pupil funding. That's the highest amount that we've ever had in the history of the state of Florida. We will be increasing the base student allocation by $124. That is the largest increase in nearly a decade in the state of Florida. And if the legislature accepts our proposal, from the time I took office until now, we will have seen really, really strong increases in the funding. We're also going to be including $421 million for school safety and for mental health initiatives, and that includes money for school hardening grants, money for safety initiatives, particularly for our Jewish day schools, and of course the First Lady's been intimately involved with supporting mental health, particularly for our K through 12 students, and so we're very excited about that. We also are going to have in the budget $15.5 million to use to replace the FSA with our new progress monitoring system, and that'll be recurring funding because the progress monitoring tools are more interactive, they're more nimble, they provide more feedback in ways that are helpful for parents and teachers and for students. But we said that one of our major legislative proposals this coming year would be to eliminate the FSA and replace it with progress monitoring. And we're following through on that in the budget to make sure that we have the resources to be able to do the progress monitoring and do it in a way that is really value added and allowing more time for teaching, more time for learning, less time for testing, and more effective feedback for all involved. Also, we're continuing our commitment to civics and civic engagement. We're going to be investing another $500,000 into the Florida Civics and Debate Initiative to expand access to the program into every school district in the 2022-2023 school year. And this is in addition to the $106 million investment in civics education that I announced earlier this summer, which will provide teacher bonuses for any teacher earning the Florida Civics Seal of Excellence. And I think there's going to be a lot of teachers that are going to want to do that, and we think it's going to be a very powerful program. Also, to further our efforts to make Florida the #1 state for workforce education, we're including $534 million to support workforce education program. That includes $100 million for the new Workforce Development Capitalization Grant Program. That will create and expand workforce development programs at Florida school districts and at state colleges. And that's one of the things that I've been really insistent upon. People think workforce and they think sometimes exclusively state colleges. It's a great tool. We want to work with the state colleges, absolutely. I mean, if you're producing nurses and some of these other, you got to do it. But I also see huge opportunities for our school districts to be able to provide credentials and get some of their students that graduate from high school into jobs immediately. And these are high demand jobs, they pay well, and you're able to really make a good living without having to go into crippling debt. Now, in Florida, we're holding the line on university tuition. It's affordable. We're going to keep it that way. We're not going to let them raise tuition. And so we provide a good value for higher education, but there's a lot of places that don't. A lot of these schools cost a lot. They cost an arm and a leg. Kids go deep into debt, and then they end up with degrees in some instances that they could have had. They end up with degrees that aren't really paving the way for anything. They end up with jobs they could have had out of high school. So this is important for workforce, and it's something that we are absolutely committed to, not just for people who are out of school, but within our school districts, making sure that students realize that they have a lot of different avenues to be able to succeed. So all in all, Florida is the education state. We now rank #3 in the latest Quality Counts rating for K-12 by Education Week, and we're ahead of the national average in almost all the individual categories, right, Richard? I mean, in terms of all the different things that you're doing. And that doesn't happen by accident. That's because there's been a lot of emphasis on this. We want to make sure that people have the tools that they need to succeed. We place emphasis where we think it really matters on things like early learning and early literacy. We're going to be having from last session, we're going to have these books that are going to be sent out at the beginning of the school year. They're going to be utilizing those here at the Classical Academy. So we're really, really proud to place a significant emphasis on education. I think that to continuing to boost teacher pay, do these bonuses, make sure that we have workforce education, civics, all these things, replacing the FSA with progress monitoring. You know, it's a really, really robust agenda, and we're happy that we're able to do that. We're happy that we're going to have $8,000 per pupil. We're happy that we're going to be increasing the BSA, and we're happy that we're going to be able to continue to give Florida students the ability to succeed. So that's a great announcement. We have some other folks that are going to come up and talk about some other stuff regarding education, so I want to bring them up. So we'll start with the chairman of the board here at Jacksonville Classical Academy, John Rood.
Thank you, Governor. On behalf of the students of the school, the teachers, the parents, the administrators, I want to thank you for coming to Jacksonville Classical for this very, very important announcement today. The teachers, I have to admit, are extremely pleased with what has happened so far under your leadership. We're primarily first-year teachers, and our teachers have received over $6,000 per year in an unexpected raise, and it's something that is well deserved and very much appreciated. And I think all of us in the school love to hear the depth of support you are going to be providing and funding for the public education system. And we all know how important education is and how important it is to have, for the schools to have the tools to help the children get ahead. So for what you're doing, what you've announced, I want to thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, David, come on up. I'd like to second that and thank the governor for coming today and for everything. Jacksonville Classical Academy is a school of more than 100 faculty and staff members, more than 800 students, and we draw our students from every neighborhood, every background in Jacksonville. And parents choose our school because we provide a tuition-free public education that aims to train the minds and improve the hearts of young people through a classical education in the liberal arts and sciences with instruction in the principles of moral character and civic virtue. So when I hear the governor talking about focusing on early childhood literacy and on civics education, I'm very excited about that. And I'm very excited about the support that we've received so far, but the emphasis on getting all students reading on grade level by the time that they're in third grade and getting the students who didn't get there caught up, the emphasis on developing civic knowledge and knowledge for citizenship, that's the kind of education that the teachers here are providing every single day for all of our students. So we're very excited to have the governor's support in that mission. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, and speaking of literacy, we have Jennifer Mills, who's a teacher here at Jacksonville Classic Academy.
Good morning. As a public educator, I'm very excited to hear that we're increasing funding for education. It's so important that every child has access to a high-quality education regardless of their zip code or their personal circumstance. So I'm very glad to hear that we're prioritizing education.
All right, Richard Corcoran, Commissioner of Education.
Thanks, Governor. First, I just want to say it's been an amazing run. When he asked me to be Education Commissioner, I wasn't sure it was going to be this much activity and this much of an agenda on a constant basis. But we always said, what changes education? And before I even get to that point, why is it so important? Education is the one thing left that will save our country, protect our futures, and bring about another 200 plus years of prosperity. So we know that. It's got to be an education. And then how are we doing it? Governor DeSantis from the get-go said ACT, accountability, we got to make sure that we measure, because if you measure, you care. Choice, we've got to give parents choices like we have here at Jacksonville Classical. And the third one is teachers. You got to go out there and you got to get the best and the brightest teachers. I don't care if you teach, you have a great teacher, they could be under an oak tree outside, not even in a building, and they can impart knowledge and truth and wisdom to those children like nobody else can. The one thing that we know, you put a child in front of a great teacher, and maybe they've had not had a great education, that one great teacher can change them in one single year. And so when you see this massive investment, and what does that mean? You take the entire Southeast, we're #1 in minimum teacher pay. You take the Northeast, we're tied at best, at a minimum for first. So now you're going to have all these people who want to come to Florida because they're going to get the best compensation and be in an environment where you have great accountability and you have great choice. And it's a game changer. So you look at these metrics that the governor's talking about. Accountability, what's our agenda? We went from 50th and now, as he said, we're #3. And accountability, he's not done on that. We're going to absolutely turn upside down the accountability system by getting rid of the FSA and going to a much more meaningful progress monitoring system where you're tracking these kids throughout the whole year and making sure you can catch them before it's too late and then make the necessary adjustments. Choice, the massive expansion of choice. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank these legislators who have, under the governor, in the legislature, the largest expansion of school choice in the history of the state. And now you have these teacher compensation and this investment in public education, the largest increase in the BSA in over almost a decade, the largest increase in our per pupil funding of $8,000, $188. You take the school hardening and you take the mental health, which, as he mentioned, is just been passionately fought for by the First Lady. They're almost essentially doubled in the time that he's been governor. These are just transformational things, which absolutely, as our headmaster here said, these are things that transform the hearts and the souls and the minds of the next generation. And you want to know the best predictor of what the future of this country, what the future of the state looks like, if you can go back to Socrates, Hawk, Lobs, I'm messing it up, Hobbes and Locke, thank you. I was close. And even Lincoln, they would always say, if you want to know what the future of a country looks like, I can tell you that by showing me how you're educating your kids. Well, in Florida, we're educating them in a beautiful way to transform those hearts, minds, and souls, and the future for Florida looks great. So thank you so much, Governor.
So we're excited. I think that, and we'll be unveiling different aspects of the budget over the next couple weeks, and the budget we will have probably within the next few weeks as well. But this is something that's really important. And so continuing to boost teacher salaries, doing the teacher principal bonuses again, having an increase in the BSA and an increase in the per pupil spending, having $421 million for safety and mental health initiatives, putting a recurring money so that when we replace the FSA, we have an effective progress monitoring system that's going to give real feedback to parents, students, and teachers, continuing supporting civics and workforce education. This is all really, really important stuff, and I think we're going to get strong support from the legislature. It's easier to do stuff like this when you have a strong state. And the fact of the matter is we've kept Florida open, we've kept people employed, we've saved people's businesses. This is the #1 place people want to come to vacation. We've always had good tourism, but if you look in August, we were 11% higher in hotel revenues than we were in August of 2019, pre-COVID. The rest of the country was down 5% over that comparative period. People know that they come to Florida, they're going to be able to enjoy themselves, and so we've been able to keep the engine going, and that provides us with being in a real strong financial position. Still very frugal, still very prudent about what we spend, always respecting taxpayers, but when you have opportunities to really make a difference, we're going to take that. And so I look forward to being able to work with the legislature on these proposals, and I think it could be another banner year for education in the state of Florida. All right, I'll take some questions. Yes, ma'am.
Governor, we wanted to ask you about a story that's been of interest to a lot of our viewers, these migrant flights to the Jacksonville area. Your spokesperson told us your office is aware of 78 such flights in recent months. She says state law enforcement has reached the office about this. Which law enforcement agency is that? And can you provide specifics about these flights, when they landed, who was on board, how many?
So here's what happens with these flights. There's no notification to the state of Florida. These are done mostly in the middle of the night, and it's clandestine, and we really have no say into it. So what we're going to do, so I don't know on the top of my head everything, but we could provide. I know when we initially got wind of this, it wasn't through normal channels. It's people in the federal government who are effectively leaking this to us so that we have a heads up on it. I've talked with Mayor Curry. I've talked with my folks. We need to talk to the airport people. We're going to get together and figure out what we can do in the immediate term to protect folks in Florida. And then obviously, as the legislature comes back, I think about it, you have an open border in violation of U.S. law. The president has said that basically they want to even pay reparations to people who came illegally. Just think about that. You as an American, you get higher gas prices, you get higher grocery bills, you get told basically to just grin and bear it. Someone breaks the law, comes illegally, and they're going to cut them a check for hundreds of thousands of dollars. That is just unbelievable, but that's what we're dealing with. So they're not enforcing the law. I had people there to help Texas Governor Abbott. We had some of our state law enforcement there in June and July, and they did a great job. But what would happen is people would come illegally, our folks would apprehend, you turn them over to the feds, and then the feds put them on a bus and send them around, or put them on flights and send them all over the country. How is that something that's effective? So we have to look at that and say, we are suing the Biden administration over that. We have a pending lawsuit. I think we can be successful on it, but that's not going to happen overnight. Then we have to look at, okay, if these contractors are being contracted by the federal government and they're imposing problems on us. We had somebody that was murdered by somebody that was brought in by Biden. We should be able to have consequences for those contractors. And your ability to do business in Florida, I think, should absolutely be curtailed based on whether or not you're bringing problems or not bringing problems. And the fact of the matter is, this border should be secured. We know what to do because it was working prior to Biden taking office. So they should do that. But we are going to work with the folks here in Jacksonville. And the problem is, the federal government has basically the runway when it comes to air traffic in this country. So I don't control the airspace. City of Jacksonville doesn't control the airspace. The feds control the airspace. So they can shut us out. Now, this lawsuit, maybe we'll get some relief from the lawsuit. But short of that, we need to get together and figure out ways to be able to do it. We knew, one of the things that was concerning to me, and look, you can't prove any of this stuff, but they were bringing flights in May and June, we found out here. And why was that? And then Jacksonville, you saw what they had to deal with some of the COVID stuff. So there's all these things. It's just like, why? Why not just kind of let folks alone? So there's absolutely going to continue we're going to have action across a wide variety of fronts.
If I may follow up again, which law enforcement agencies are providing this information? And do you have any details about the number of flights, when, the number of people?
So in terms of like each individual flight, I can tell you, I know that they started in May, and I know that they've continued. Whether they have the ledger of everything, you'd have to talk to my office about that. But our state law enforcement agencies are engaged in this. And again, this is not something that we're given ahead of time. This is something that we find out after the fact. And I talked with the folks at the Jacksonville Aviation Authority. Feds come in, they do it, they got a bus. My view would be, why don't we, if they're going to come here, we'll provide buses and provide them. I will send them to Delaware and do that. If he's not going to support the border being secured, then he should be able to have everyone there. So we will do whatever we can in that regard, and we are absolutely going to do everything we can.
Can you name some of those private contractors you're talking about, Valerie?
Well, I could, but I'm not going to do it right now. I think that we want to maybe have discussions with some of them, because you have charter air, and then you also have buses. And I think we want to have some discussions. I'd like to get to a place where we're in a better spot than we are now. Just think about it. If they're not going to do anything to change us, maybe we'll win in court. Maybe we'll have something that pushes back. But even then, you saw what happened with the OSHA decision. It was stayed by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, meaning not in effect. And what did the Biden administration say to businesses? Ignore the court and follow our rule anyways. And so I think that they basically said, to hell with these court decisions. They're going to do whatever they feel like doing. And so that's something that's problematic, because we can even win in court and they may disregard that. So we're going to do all we can. But there are definitely, I think, from a contractor perspective, we've really got to have a big conversation with some of those and then see what we can do in terms of this. Unfortunately, over the years, and we've looked at different things to do, unfortunately, over the years, federal courts have basically said illegal immigration is something for the federal government. They have the jurisdiction. So when states want to go in and protect themselves, they have not looked kindly on some of those things. And I'm not sure that's the right decision, but clearly, if it's the federal government's responsibility, but then the federal government defaults on that responsibility, then the states still have their hands tied. I don't think both can be true. If it's a federal responsibility, then they have a responsibility to discharge the duties and enforce the law. If they're not doing that, then clearly, I think a state should be able to come in and provide protections. And so that's what we're going to be looking to do.
Governor, a two-part question real quick. When it comes to these undocumented immigrants, you say that they're coming in at 2 and 3 in the morning, late at night. Are we talking about by the dozen, by the hundreds, and are these asylum seekers? What are they?
Well, I think in the flight that is in question for the individual that posed as a minor, came in, was really in the 20s. I think that flight was one with people that were at least posing as being under 18. So what you do is you have people that are coming to the border, a lot of kind of like 16, 17-year-old males coming. They're treated differently than somebody that was over the age of 18. And so that particular flight was supposed to be, I think, what they call, UACs. And they were on a bus, and I think many of them taken to the Homestead facility down in Southwest Florida. And I know that that's been the case with other ones. Now we're also looking at buses from South Texas, where those buses taking folks, and buses that are coming in to the state of Florida and certainly in other parts. It's interesting. If you're trying to deter kind of illegal migration in the interior of the country, if you come illegally and they don't catch you, it's actually in some respects worse than if they catch you, because when they catch you, they'll give you money or potentially put you on a conveyance to get you somewhere, whereas if they don't catch you, you're kind of on your own and you don't necessarily get any money from the government and everything. Really, really perverse incentives. All right, well, we will be back. I am going to be working. I've talked to the mayor, and so I just let people know in Northeast Florida, we are going to work together, and we just want to make sure that our communities are protected. Thank you.
All right.
So definitely still important things that people are talking about. This issue with the private flights. These are private jets. These aren't big commercial jets coming in. They hold about 2 to 3 dozen people, and there's allegedly been 70 of them. Pardon me. So we're talking a couple thousand people here. And Jacksonville is a city of almost 1 million people. So just to be, let me bring this up real quick. Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, Duval County, they can handle this. I mean, people have made a big deal of all of these people coming in here. Like I said, 70 private flights. Jacksonville is the biggest geographically, not people. Geographically speaking, it's the largest city in all of North America. Geographically. It's big. Giant, sprawling place. And the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is pretty high speed. Those guys up there, they run around in wolf packs. 2, 3, sometimes 4 squad cars, each with 2 or 3 guys. So, so when they roll up on a situation, they are very, very well prepared. So it's not something that's outside of this idea of Florida being overwhelmed with these, a couple thousand people. A couple thousand people is not a problem, and that we've only had an issue with one. I'm sure and I'm sure a lot of people are going to take issue with this. I'm sure the vast majority of those people that came here on those flights right now are probably hard at work and have been since the sun came up. Because here in Florida, you can't get people to work, to swing a hammer, to run a saw, to lift lumber. We are still trying to catch up with the backlog of houses that need to be built. So believe me, if they're male and they're young and strong, they are swinging a hammer somewhere. They're running a nail gun. They're working their ass off. I guarantee it somewhere. Hear it every morning, even through the winter. And yeah, there's going to be some that do some dumb shit. But guess what? It's Florida. We got a lot of people that do dumb shit of all sorts of shades. So let's just put this in perspective. Now, what the title said about everybody backing down. Let me get zoomed out here properly. Miami-Dade, the largest school district in all of Florida, has backed down. Miami-Dade, the largest school district in all of Florida, has backed down. They're not... Okay, you see, this is what I'm watching my chat here out of the corner of my eye. They're here to replace this. Okay, so 2,000 people show up in Maggie in Florida. We're a state of 22 million. We've got over 1 million people, Spanish speakers, already here. Millions of them in South Florida, all over the place. You would never know. You would never know they're here. Florida is a huge place. And like I said, if 70 flights are like, oh, people think of 70 jumbo jets. It's not 70 jumbo jets. It's 70 little tiny private jets, allegedly. And then, of course, people assume it's all criminals. It's not. This vast majority of people that come here, if they're here, they're going to get a job. See, this is the power of Florida. This is the power that people don't realize they have. And this is an important point to make. People come here and they don't hold on to their old values. Breaking news, masks completely optional at the Keys schools. So the Keys have backed down. Central Florida, Seminole County, Marion County, Broward. Who's next? West Palm. Palm Beach County Public Schools. Masks now optional. Only 3 Florida school districts of 67 have mandates. But you see, this is kind of the thing I was kind of focusing on in chat that really just drives me insane. It's actually twofold. I start the morning, and I try to, when there's an option to, with something positive, something good, something uplifting, something people can hold on to for the day. It's like, here's this good thing happening, and the governor comes out and makes these announcements that, our economy's doing great, and we have the money to give the bonuses, and we're doing all this stuff for education, and things are getting better and better. Things are better now in Florida than they were back in 19, before the whole 2020 sniffles. So much good news, and to have 2 or 3 people show up and find something to bitch about that literally, in a couple different cases, had nothing to do with what the governor was talking about is, to me, just, it makes me want to pull my hair out. It makes me want to pull my freaking hair out. Because people like, some guy was talking about China. We're not even talking about China. Not even talking about China. And somebody brings that up. And I'm like, well, why don't we talk about Nibiru? Florida withholds entire school board salaries in feud over mask mandate. And it works. When you mess with their money, it works. Broward schools no longer require masks for students. Some people think the left is, this giant juggernaut, that they can't be beaten. You can beat these people if you just learn to fight and not be all woe is me about everything. If I could change anything. And you see, and there's thank God my filters are good enough. I'm hiding a comment right now that's just ridiculous. Sometimes, and I'll tell you what, Barron, sometimes it takes time. Sometimes things, I think the Obama thing was the tipping point. Because there hasn't been, the only quote-unquote Democrat governor was actually a Republican when he was elected. The last 4 governors of Florida have all been conservatives, but you've got to build the house from the ground up. You've got to build. You see, okay, it's like Fierce 1269. All the school boards need to be replaced. Exactly wrong, Fierce. Exactly wrong. The vast majority, 99% of the school boards in Florida are run by conservatives who have been right with the governor all the time and did not impose mask mandates and did not impose any kind of a mandate and stood with the governor. But of course, the loudmouthed ones in Brevard, Broward, Alachua, by the way, county is Gainesville. That's the University of Florida. and Leon is Tallahassee. So when I talk about Leon County, that's Tallahassee. Alachua is Gainesville. Duval County is Jacksonville. And, of course, West Palm, Miami-Dade. People know where that is. This is the point. The vast majority of Florida has, for this entire time, been on the same sheet of music with the governor. The younger crowd, I'm reading a comment here. Learning a trade will keep you fed and the bills paid. Amen, gate smasher. Amen. Amen. Absolutely. There are so many opportunities down here in Florida. I can't stress enough how big a deal that satellite company, the world's largest satellite manufacturer, relocating its headquarters to Florida is. It is a big deal. And they said they would trade 20 rocket scientists for one sheet metal worker. Let me say this again. They would trade 20 of their rocket scientists for one sheet metal worker. That's how in demand things like that are in Florida. And there's schools, even the governor's done all sorts of, a couple at least that I know of, talking about handing out money to build a school to teach people how to work on trucks, how to weld, how to drive the trucks, how to do all sorts of different things like this. Big paying jobs. There was a video out and it was rolling around on TikTok and on Twitter. And I don't have it. I wish somebody could find it for me. It was this woman, young woman, and she was sitting in her car, and she had a 4-year degree, and she had this giant pile of debt. Now, pardon me, she didn't have a 4-year degree. She had a master's. She had a master's degree, and she was in a relationship, a guy that she had just married, and he was in some type of a trade. I can't remember what it was. But he was able to, if he went out on one weekend and worked overtime, he could make more in 2 days of overtime than she would make all week. And she had spent 8 years in school and gotten the degree, and he was just a tradesman. And I'm trying to remember what it was that he did. But that's the case, and a lot of young women are in this case. They find a guy, and he's just been to trade school for a year or so, and they're bringing in bank. And these guys are bringing in bank. And they don't have debt. They don't have any education debt. And they're blue-collar workers. And they're just... And this is what Florida... Chewbacca saw the video. Okay, a lot of people did. And this is what Florida is built on. This is what gives Florida that ability to deal with the coming inflation, to deal with the issues, even if the dollar were to have a problem. When you have lots of dollars, you can deal with it. You see, when you're working and living right at the edge of existence of life, and you've got all sorts of government programs keeping you propped up, and then all of that gets pulled away, see, that's a problem. But in Florida, we don't have that. You see, you add all of that to the tourism. You know, and we're not just Cousin Eddie and his kids hopping in the camper, coming down to Disney World and, emptying it out in the sewer in front of Clark's place. We have people that come here, fly here, from all over the world to vacation in Florida. From Europe, from Russia, from Brazil, from Asia. And they bring their money, and they bring their wealth, and they bring everything that you get when you... Orlando turns over 60 million people a year. Let me say this again. Just Orlando alone has 60 million visitors a year. That's over 1 million a week that come, and they usually stay for at least 7 to 10 days from all over the world. It's really a logistics miracle. If you've ever been to Orlando, and that's why they have three huge airports. And there's planes all day, 24/7, 365, in and out of Orlando. If you were let's say that you were a space alien and you came from another planet, and you arrived and you came into orbit over North America, you would honest to God believe Florida was the capital of the continent if you went strictly on air travel. You would believe that clearly this little strip of land down here in the southeast, based on just the amount of travel and the amount of energy and the amount of people, you would think for sure, absolutely for sure, that we were the capital. When you looked at the air travel of the world, the air travel of the hemisphere, and the air travel of even our own continent, it's not even close. And all this having been said, it's still peaceful. It's still quiet. You wouldn't know it, but I'm sitting right next to two windows, one of which is open. That's how quiet it is in a neighborhood here in Florida. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the video of the videos, plural, from my backup channel, Florida Maquis Alpha site, right? With the little animals that are feeding on the little feed station with the water and all that. That's literally 100 yards out back of my house. And I'll even zoom in. I'll even show you where I'm at. Here's Daytona Beach. Here's St. Augustine. Here's Jacksonville. I live, and I'm not going to zoom in on my house specifically. I don't want visitors. Little town, Palm Coast right here. And I live, you see all these little streets in here? I live in one of these streets. And it is pin drop quiet. It is incredibly peaceful. And I live right along a main artery. I could be on 95 in 10 minutes. Oh, underwater welders, Claudine. Oh, my God. Down here, somebody was asking me yesterday about boats, about wanting to work on a boat. Oh, my kid, are you kidding? There's all sorts of jobs working on boats. Daytona is screaming for people. This, and this isn't unique. Welcome, Orlando. You look at people look at Orlando on a map and they're like, "Oh my God, I could never live there." And yeah, you know what? If you go into the city, yeah, you'll probably be miserable. But this is the real secret of Florida, is that the vast majority of people live out in the suburbs, and out in the suburbs like Mount Dora, Apopka, Kissimmee, St. Cloud. This is all just neighborhoods, quiet ones. We actually talked about it, Awakened One. We talked about it a couple of different times. And I guess it's Hob Sound. I had pronounced it Hobie Sound. Here's my opinion. I'll state this again about Nancy Pelosi. I hope she comes. I hope she comes. I hope she finds a great place. And I hope we can get a camera on her 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, with her smiling and enjoying herself and being blessed and lifted up in Florida. Because just the images of that alone, when the millions of liberal leftist Nazis see it in San Francisco and the West Coast, they'll rip their hair out. Let her drink. Oh, believe me, I tell you what, American Oma, Nancy Pelosi does not have anything on the elderly people in Florida. Day drinking is a pastime. It is a sport down here for the old folks. And they have no fear. They will throw a cold 12-pack in the front seat. They'll crack it open and, they'll sit there and just pound them down the road they go. I'm not suggesting that activity. I'm just reporting what I've seen. She would be happy as a clam. And that people are flipping out about this, guys. I've covered this multiple times, and I'm going to tell you every time I have a chance. See this little area here called Jupiter, Florida, just north of West Palm, just north of Mar-a-Lago? Do you know that the two main leads for MSNBC live here? That's right. The two main lead anchors for MSNBC live here. Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough. Every day. And they live in Jupiter, Florida. Don Lemon was just caught vacationing down here. This is exactly... It's one of the reasons that they just... apparently, Mr. Trump, just, if I'm not mistaken, has now made his way back south. Because they had the America First Policy Gala. It's not low. Well, believe me, okay, well, wonderful. If you, there's something more than, if you're comparing to Seattle, enjoy Seattle then. Enjoy Seattle. They couldn't pay me enough. They could not pay me enough to live in Seattle. Be no way. You'd never catch me in Washington State. You'd never catch me in Oregon or California. I guess that would go to values. If you want to be rich and live in tyranny, okay. I mean, I guess that's, you do you. That's kind of a Florida value. You do you. So, this is what the governor has really been focusing on. Education. Yesterday he was talking about water quality. And before that he was talking about infrastructure. See, this is the key. This is how you defeat the left. This is how you defeat... The only thing Nikki Fried has is her pro-drug stance. You see all these great jobs and all of this education and all of this hope and all of this ability to rise above and fight against DC and win. It requires you not be stoned. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It requires you have a sound mind. Now, I'm not saying there aren't people that don't go out on weekends and pound down a few beers or have a few cocktails. That's one thing. That's one thing, but that's not what's going on in California and Colorado and on the West Coast. There are people out there that literally make their drug addiction their entire life. They wake up and they partake. They spend all day partaking. They go to bed having partaken, and they lather, rinse, repeat, So, it is what it is. I mean, you can have, if that's the value you want, if the weed rules your life that way, because you believe it's medicine, then there are states that are going to love you. Colorado will love you. New Mexico will love you. California's got beaches. Go there. Go pop yourself a tent right on the sidewalk. Go pop yourself a tent right on the sidewalk and live with the squalor, live with the filth, and they'll provide you with as much weed as you need to not be able to pay attention to it. It is what it is. Then there are little tiny places around Florida. If you look hard enough, you'll find them. But because we've set a higher standard here, and we've said, you know what? You can be happy and you can be blessed and you can have a fantastic life without the drugs. See, some people have taken issue with that. They don't like that idea. They don't like the idea of not having a crutch or a substance because it gives them a sense of control. Because sometimes bad things happen in life. And it doesn't matter how good things are, there can be challenges. And people say, well, I want to always have these drugs just in case so I can go run to them. It's like their safety net. You know, and like I said, you have a hard week at work, you meet up with the guys at the bar, you have a few drinks, you talk it out, go home, be with your better half, and you got kids, be blessed. I mean, go enjoy the sunshine, go enjoy the beach, go enjoy the lake, go live life. But to sit at home and bake it up, or even with alcohol, if you're going to be drunk like 24/7, 365, it's the same thing. Appeasers and enablers of druggies bring down society. Bingo. It is what it is. You know, people have to make choices. And believe me, I'm just, like I said, this is the Florida Marquee channel. This is my opinion. People wonder why Florida is doing what Florida is doing. This is why. Yeah, Florida did get a reputation for the opiates, that's for sure. And they even got Rush. Imagine being a guy like Rush Limbaugh. I mean, imagine being a guy like Rush Limbaugh. You're literally the most listened to radio personality in the entire world. You're worth tens of millions of dollars. And you still get hooked. Imagine all of the reasons that guy would have had to be happy. Imagine. And he still got hooked. So nobody's immune. Nobody's immune, but you still have to acknowledge it's wrong. You know, anybody can make any anecdotal statement, Nomad, John. You know, deal with your issue. I mean, if you're more productive when you're smoking pot, then you must have been one of the most useless individuals in the world without it. And I'm just going to say it. I mean, if that's what it took, if that's what it takes, if you need to crutch to be productive, if you need to crutch on a substance to be productive, then I feel sorry for you. You know, I'm going to be 52 years old here. I played football at a really high level. In high school, we were 16th in the nation. I got injuries from that. I joined the Army. I've got injuries from that. I worked in the moving industry for 10 years. I've got injuries from that. I got all sorts of aches and pains. And I get my ass out of bed every morning. And I get the job done. I figure out some way to roll my ass. And believe me, it hurts a lot of mornings. But no narcotics. Once in a great while, I'll have a little bit of coconut rum. But not every day. For damn sure. No pills, no pharmacies, no prescriptions, nothing. Oh, you know what, Nomad John, there's medical benefits to all sorts of things. Limbaugh was in a lot of pain. His doctor prescribed it. That wasn't a fair statement. It's a fair statement when he started getting them outside of his doctor through his maid. Illegally, while at the same time, look, I agreed with a lot of what Rush said, but some of the things he did were pretty hypocritical. Some of the things he did were he was bitching about drug addicts and how they were ruining society, and he was literally dumping tens of thousands of dollars through the back door, through his maid and through some of his staff to go bring him more drugs than what the doctors would give him. And that's a normal story. That's a very average story. Because that's the end of all opiates. So, you know, there's a time, and then the military, the VA. And I'll tell you the personal story. I might as well. Because of the injuries from the military, I had a huge tramadol prescription that was free. Let me say this again. Free. Over 100 tramadol a month. And I walked away from it. And believe me, it was hard. It was one of the most difficult things. It was one of the hardest things I'd ever did in my life. Broke both my ankles in the Army. And here's why, another thing too that kind of pissed me off about Trump. You see, I actually do have bone spurs. I literally have x-rays that I can show you of the bone spurs in my ankles. So when somebody letters in 4 sports and then says he can't march, after 4 years of lettering at college and being an athlete at the highest level at the time, and then when asked to serve, has a note given to him saying he literally can't stand or march after having played football, baseball, track. And there was another one that he played and lettered in college. So that's why I kind of had an issue specifically with Trump. But I did. I had to walk away from that prescription. And it is brutal. It is brutal walking away. It is so difficult. But I thank God every day I did. Thank God every day I did. Actually, no, it was a mountainside in Monterey, California. I went running down the side of a mountain and hit a root the wrong way. It was dark, and trying to stop myself, cracked both ankles. It was pretty bad. And they were, from that point on, they were both incredibly weak. There was far more damage in there than what they repaired. And even now, just with the best shoes and a really great treadmill, some days it's all I can do, just use the treadmill. So, anyway, personal story. So I know what kind of whereof I speak on this. I've been there. I understand. Because I know what the people who are smoking pot, I don't, and I never have. I'm actually allergic to it. But I know the idea of being more productive. Yes, that's what I was doing there, Florida Treasure. I was in Monterey. I was a linguist. I've mentioned this before on my channel. I was a Spanish linguist. So it does. I mean, once you've got that little bottle there and you pop a couple of those suckers and the pain goes away and you're like, wow, I can go on with my day. And so, yeah, I get the idea of being more productive. I get the idea of thinking, wow, this is fixing my life. But actually it was long-term making it a lot worse. And I'll tell you what, I'm glad I got rid of it. I kicked it right before the 2020 sniffles, the year before. And I'll tell you what, there are a lot of people in boxes, in graves right now, because one of the things they don't tell you, the moving industry is brutal, about the narcotics and about the marijuana. It compromises your lungs so badly. You do not realize how much those CNS depressants affect your body's ability to exchange oxygen for carbon dioxide. When you start, and I know you would think, well, I understand the pot, but what about the narcotics? The narcotics do the same thing. The narcotics do the same thing long term. It depresses your breathing. And you lose the ability to exchange oxygen at a really high level. And long-term abuse of both, they're not telling you this, guys. They're not telling you this. But it is one of the biggest comorbidities with the 2020 sniffles. It's the drug, Nomad. It's the THC that does it. When you're already compromised that way with your lungs, and then something like that hits, you're toast. You are absolutely toast. That's why you have one of the biggest comorbidities other than age was being overweight. Well, what's the reason people are overweight? The reason people are overweight is that they're sedentary. So their lungs aren't as strong as they should be. And that's really the case. That's why they had to go on ventilators. Yeah, cigarettes. I'll tell you what, though, with cigarettes, I smoked in the Army, but I gave those up years and years and years ago. That's a big change. You'll notice in 6 months you quit smoking. So anyway, but I don't want to get this into some type of a health advice thing. But point is, Florida has a lot of people here who have made a lot of mistakes in life, and they've reinvented themselves, and they understand why and what's going to be necessary to fight back against DC. And we're going to need everybody on deck at their best to win. We're going to be everybody on deck at their best at a moment's notice. And I'll tell you what, being an alcoholic, being a drug addict, being hooked to pills, all this kind of things, and being internally negative, all of those things have to go away, or you won't enjoy Florida. So, anyway, God bless. Thank you guys for being here. I very much appreciate it. We will, of course, yes, exactly, baby steps. Baby steps is the key. And Florida is a second chance in life, absolutely. And you will feel 10 to 20 years younger. I'm just reading my chat here. You will, guaranteed. I'm not the only story. And the stories actually go back 500 years about this. This whole fountain of youth thing, it's not the fountain of immortality. I've said this before. It's the fountain of youth. Even 500 years ago, people were coming here, and after being here for 6 months or a year, they started writing stories. And they're like, why do I feel better here? Why do I feel stronger here? Why do I feel younger than I was before? So anyway, God bless. We're going to talk about that in future videos. I have a DVD set that I got called Secrets of the Dead. It's narrated by Jimmy Smits. It talks about St. Augustine, Palm Coast, Fort Caroline, this region, and the real Thanksgiving. So anyway, you guys have a great day. Sorry about Twitch last night. I just got caught up doing stuff, and I didn't realize what time it was, and it got to be too late. So tonight, for sure, we'll see you on Twitch. Promise, my word to you. God bless. Like, share, subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.